attention, everybody, attention. Attention, if you can, just pay respect and silence your phones. Now it's ready to get started.
All right, so I'm Garner. I work at BioWare, and welcome to this workshop on the art of immersion. So I'm a little nervous since it's the first time I got to do this talk. So what I like to do is I like to walk around a lot, and I like bouncing off people and having kind of a framework and structure, but yet at the same time having the same chance to offer input and get feedback and be able to vibe with everybody and be immersed and interactive. So anyway, let's see. Let's all take a couple moments for my own sanity and to have a little person. Dear Lord, thanks for letting me be a part of this great crowd, having the honor to maybe be able to present some experience and knowledge to these terrific folks. And then maybe there might be a spark or something that's useful or something that will enable greatness and being able to let some knowledge walk out and glorify into whatever extent we've got planned. Lord, thank you so much for being able to meet these great people, to have experiences, to walk around in something that is lush and green and has just amazing evidence of your glory. Thank you. One more day. So, on the subject of immersion, what is it? It's this great box toy that marketing likes to talk about. Our game is immersive. It's guaranteed to do stuff and get all of our people so that you'll be sucked into the game, and hours later you might just have some great experience at it. So what is this thing? And so I'd like to talk to you about the values of that immersion. Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it's too little. And what does it take to get in there? Now, on each one of these slides, I can probably talk about each thing at length to an hour. So it's a 10,000-foot level kind of view of what's possible out there, and kind of get you guys' brain cells stimulated in other directions, perhaps. And there's three things that I want you to take away from this, and it's buried in there. You'll see it as I go on. I'd like to emphasize there's three things that this workshop would like to impart to you about immersion. And see, this is from my experiences, some research, other people that talk to me, new perspectives that other people have and stuff. But the first one is immersion is about making meaningful choices. The second one is that immersion has a ratio of, if you could quantify this stuff, have little buckets of immersion and stuff, you'd be able to have 50% comfort, 30% excitement, and 20% mystery. 50% comfort rapport.
What?
50% comfort.
Okay.
And rapport, safety. 30% excitement or tests. And 20% mystery, complete unknown. And the last little nugget is that to have this immersive fun, this is my own theory now, so I'm going to try and show evidence that this works. But so far, this has worked for me. in that immersion is the being able to have an element A, you have an element B that may or may not be related to it, but it's your job as a player to find a relationship that you think might work in your mind. And at that time, that your theory proves correct, that's when you have a little nugget of proportional immersive fun. And without further ado, that's how I'm going to try to close this thing. So what is immersion? Some people say it's suspension of disbelief. You've heard that term over and over again. Dictionary.com says being a state of being that's deeply engaged or involved. GallanSutra.com, an article is on there to say it's pretending that all the interactions outside of the game don't exist. And Rules of Play, which is a hardcover, hard-to-read book, reads like a doctor's manual, says that it's non-trivial effort. So it's like, for myself, it's imagining in your mind's eye what you're going to do next. Like the game has some stimulus, and you're like, okay, that's where I want to go with that. I want to, if it's a fight game, I want to take my fist and put it on the opponent. Or if it's a exploration game, I want to see what's behind that tree. Whatever that next goal is, and it could be a small goal, it could be a big goal, it could be a strategic goal. Like I want my city to be big and huge and run very efficiently. Whatever that goal is, you're in your mind, you're projecting ahead of time where you want things to go. So this engages, things like immersion engage your deep emotions. Not like, well, hey, let's just see well, it could be just experimentation. It could be, let's see, what was that? Lance was saying this morning, your emotion of delight. That's a good one. Could be pain, tranquility, awe, wonder, and things that you invoke feelings in those games. Like with art has a great way to do that. And it's like you can see the picture and it just invokes some emotion. And how does that work with the rest of the environment? So, what most people consider immersion, and it's rightly true, is narrative. You got a story going on. It's actually interesting for me because it's like, write whatever you want to write on. And I'm like, great, this is perfect. I'm going to write on some, like, how do players work with a story and stuff. So I feel like I'm kind of summarizing everybody else's speech this entire time, except for maybe a couple original points. But for the most part, everybody's like kind of saying the same thing. So I'm like, wow, that's feels really kind of cool as a little part of that. But on that subject, before we get into narrative immersion, there's a couple things. Like someone said earlier yesterday, the place you believe you are determines how you react to it. And finding that safety in there, it's like you have that place where you are and how you want to react. It's like that unknown factor, and then figuring out that excitement of getting that to work. And something that's neuro-linguistic programming for dummies. You'd be surprised where you can find out all sorts of gaming knowledge, because gaming knowledge reflects in a large part sometimes maybe real life has to offer. And so something out here that really struck me was, if you were in a group of people who witnessed a robbery, chances are that none of you would give the police the same account. This is because everyone receives data that creates their reality to their five senses. Sight, auditory, sound, kinesthetic, touch, gustatory, taste, and olfactory smell. However, your senses bombard your brain with so much data and at any one time in order to maintain your sanity. You only process a very small fraction of that incoming data. What your brain accesses is dictated by filters that are combinations of who you believe you are, your values and beliefs, and your memories. Found this to be very relational to how games work. How you relate to something, how you establish that comfort, how you establish that safety. Where are you currently, and where do you want to go? It's like, how can you relate to what the game experience has to offer for you? So in a narrative immersion, you have a story. You have a place that we've been talking about story all weekend long. It's like the 3 acts going on. You've got your rising action. You've got your climax. And how can you relate to all that stuff? That's it's where you start to care about what's happening around you, who the characters are, how does the environment work with the characters, the background, history, where are all of your at? Where is everything relating to you, and how you want to make your next move? So we've seen some clumsy dialogue and stupid characters and unrealistic plots. Those are kind of taking away from that immersive value and stuff. But for the most part, narrative immersion, that's what most people have a picture of right away for what immersion is. But I'm going to challenge you and say that there's other immersion. Strategic immersion. This is like your projection of where you want to go in the game. It has nothing to do with story whatsoever. This is where your cerebral mind is like, I want to win this chess match. I want to finish this quest. I want to achieve, find the rare purple item in WoW. Whatever it is, that's like your goal. And you're doing it when you're immersing it. You aren't like, okay, well, I should calculate this. And, I'm looking at the time every few minutes and stuff. Am I there yet? And so you're actually doing it. You're in the moment. You're letting your senses. I've got this step and I got that step, and I'm almost as close to reaching whatever it is. This is where you're observing, you're deducing, you're picking up stuff. You're solving clues, like L.A. Noir has a great amount of that, where they're picking up different clues. Now, sometimes you're like something that you pick up, where it becomes part of the larger story, but in your mind, you're calculating and trying to forecast where you want to go with. And another type of immersion. Oh yeah, the distractions for that. Awkward, illogical gameplay. Things that have bad pathfinding. Stuff it makes it really hard to formulate strategy. This is the anti-strategic immersion. You want to be able to project where you want to go and the logical steps of how you get there. And the last one, tactical immersion. Tetris has no backstory. Best you want to do is like, hey, I just want to clear up some lines, get really close to the top. This is the kind of thing you're doing from 1 second to the next. Like, say, for instance, in Mass Effect, you've got shooting. Taking care of your immediate bad guy. Or say, for instance, like in Tetris, you've got lining up blocks. Let's see here. Maybe things like Club Penguin, you've got talking to your next friend, or going down the slide, reading back and forth. Anyway, these are the things that are second to second. This is where your higher brain function just kind of shuts down. You do as a function of the game. And you just keep on rolling. You go left, you go right. You're not thinking of, if I go left, that stump might be there, and let's see, in the next 10 seconds, this another guy might come out there. Now, eventually, you'll get to that point. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, distractions for this: slow, awkward controls. This is where the game, unreliability, things that you predict in the next couple seconds that don't happen, or awkward gameplay changes that you haven't been educated on. When it happens, we'll talk about how that relates to the safety, mystery, and later. Okay, so the goals of immersion: to tell a story, to provide experience, to keep a player playing your game, solidify and focus that gameplay, and keeping that experience alive, providing the player with interesting choices. That, I think, the last one. I think that's probably the most important one there. Okay, so decision and consequences. Now, I found this to be relevant to immersion because that's what we're doing. We're making interesting choices. They have consequences, and things that are simple and things that are complex. Things that are simple, like walking, shaking hands, sitting moving a stool, things that we can take for granted that's going to happen. It's like not a lot of higher brain power occurs us with any of that stuff. We just kind of do it. There's not really any kind of challenge to that. And stuff, those are the things that are a little bit less fun. But when we find more fun, we have that little challenge in there. The little, when you're talking about the introduction, the rising action, and the climax. It's like every little action kind of has its own story. Can I do this? I am doing this, but is it going to turn out the way I hope? Moment of truth. Turns out good, bad, yes, no. Is it either a learning experience or success? So the complex decisions, those are like things that are more complex. That's a little. So things that have like a test of skill under duress. Things that you're trying to quickly deduce whether you want to turn left or right. Do you want to, in a first-person shooter game, do you want to pick up the ammo, run to cover, avoid the bad guy, go up another level, get a different tactical solution? These are things that are happening at like runtime, on a second-by-second basis. So you have an unusual amount of complex decisions happen to you all the time in a first-person shooter, making almost anything you do in a first-person shooter very interesting. Whereas something that might be slowed down, like dialogue or something, that you have more contemplative time. And so things happen in a slower pace. But anyway, what I found some interesting things, an interesting point for a complex decision is that if you do it so much that you continue to test the player about a certain thing in the same stimulus and they finally get their theory proved correct, it turns into a simple decision. Forward. It stops being immersive at that time. So how much is too much? Having let me hear some examples of where too much realism is at the board, where you're kind of unfocused on what you should do next because there's so much stimulus going on at once. Anything come to mind?
Flight simulators.
So much controls on the GUI at once, yeah.
World in conflict.
Mm-hmm. Thousands of units running out.
Yeah.
One of the things when I play like an RPG like Neverwinter Nights, there were so many side quests that would come in place of the real quest you were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So many other opponents would compete for your attention and work on their side quests.
Exactly.
You forget what the main mission was.
Exactly. Too many story options going on at once.
It blew Immersion fun. It became frustrating.
We'll talk about that too. Too much choice. Yeah, overwhelming the player. Too much contrast. So even though WoW being a very successful game, you know.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes that can be overwhelming to a new player. So.
I'm home just looking at this. What is this?
That's WoW.
Yeah,
That's
that's
called
called
WoW. This might be an example of functionality overload, where you have so many choices that you're completely lost as to what you should focus in on. Like, where are the enemies on there?
That's just a player bragging right there. It's just really
It's kind of the reason they added movelets in later versions of The Sims, because earlier on there was it really helps narrow down. Look, your Sim's hungry, your Sim has to go to the bathroom, figure out this stuff.
Yeah, it starts getting into like granular stuff, and you're like, maybe it's not. But yeah, here there's like so many options going on. It's hard to concentrate on where your opponents are or you are in that mess. You know, it's like to this advanced player who's been operating on and building his GUI for the entire time. You know, he's got these are all simple decisions because those complex decisions have been done for so long that it's reflex to do whatever he needs to do. But some beginning level player would see this as catastrophically complex.
But a beginning player wouldn't start out with a custom UI.
Right, I'm just using this as a pictorial example of something like that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
too little immersion. This is where there's not enough complex decisions, where you don't have much guidance on where you should go. Things are unrealistic in their expectations. Your reality, your comfort zone, doesn't comply with what the game has to offer. Things that might be things not enough interest in the subject matter. Like, say for instance, if you're creating a great Christian game that talks about Exodus, and you're helping Moses, you know, get out of the desert, you're being chased by the dudes on the chariots and stuff, and suddenly you're just marketing this to maybe an atheist that he likes science fiction and doesn't care to learn about, you know, this kind of historian stuff. You might find it a little tougher trying to be immersed, having a low interest level and stuff. Anyway, let's see, small interest, unfamiliar subject matter, glitches, experience distractions, stuff that is unexpected, things that detract from your gameplay experience, inconsistent and confusing gameplay. So, this is probably a couple examples here. Gosh, I can't even see that truck there. It's like if you can imagine a truck clipping through the bridge, and so that nothing is actually there's no impeding speed. It's only about the terrain you're on. It doesn't matter about the tipping over. You can drive straight up the mountain, like Mango can do in Mustang. And so, like, you don't know direction where you're going, and things like you might expect the headlights or the taillights to be on the truck itself. There are things that your expectations, what reality, and your safety zone, your rapport kind of disappears. So it's hard to determine what things to do for your next move. Anyway, this isn't a game about, this isn't a lecture about how to pick that apart in the games, but this is an example of not enough information to make your predictions in complex issues. So what is that magic ratio? I said 50% comfort, 30% excitement, 20% mystery. Thinking about how that target audience relates to that ratio. Like, say if I like science fiction, yeah, I would be a pretty good candidate for estimation. If I like story, I would be a great subject for someone that's role playing. If I'm like a FPS nut, I might not like Tetris as a minigame so much. But you know, everybody's got their own specific stuff and own specific views. And if you can like mold things to keep in mind who your target audience is, listen to your audience. That was this morning's message. Like I was talking earlier today about like a couple ideas. It's like, well, your idea seems to be cool, and you thought about working that for the female audience instead of the male audience. There's good merit to it. Considering who your target audience is a great thing to keep in mind when you're talking about immersion. So this immersive fun. This is the object A plus object B plus your theory equals immersive fun when it seems it's correct. This is where you can, it's a theory that your player develops from time to time again, is different from how you want your game to go. And it causes that frustration that they don't get that little squirt of fun. They get frustrated and eventually break off from feeling like this game is entertaining. And that's essentially what games are all about, right? Doing something you can't do, being someone that you normally not be, going places that you normally can't go. It's about like escaping the boss, escaping the chores, babysitting, you know, whatever things are kind of frustrating. Reminding you of real life. That's why we play. In fact, on that, when we play or when we fight, those are the two times you're your most authentic selves. Because there's no pressures in society. You can be you at your most complete self. Isn't that good? Maybe not. But for me it does. Because there's no pressures. That is an escape because we're always constantly reminding stuff. Yeah. So